They didn't even let me take my coat. 2 guards flanked me, stiff, cold, no eye contact, like I was something contagious, something rotten that had finally surfaced. I could hear my own footsteps echo down the marble corridor. Louder than the whispers, but not louder than the shame. Someone behind me muttered, "She always thought she was better than the rest of us." I didn't turn around. I didn't flinch, because they were right. I did think I was better. Not because I craved power, but because I actually cared. My name is Dr. Elara Wynn, 36, former military surgeon, former national hero, and now public enemy number 1. They said I breached protocol, leaked sensitive documents, jeopardized national security. The headlines weren't subtle: traitor in a white coat, fallen angel of the Republic. It was a calculated smear, precise, fast, and devastating. But what they didn't expect, what she didn't expect, was that I'd survive it, because they thought they buried me. But I had something they didn't: her blood type. The door slammed behind me, and just like that, I wasn't a part of the government anymore. I could still feel the heat of Reed's hand when he passed me that sealed envelope this morning. His jaw had been tense, too tense for a Monday. He didn't say much, just leaned close and whispered, "They're coming for you, Elara. The president signed the order herself." I thought he was joking, until the guards arrived. Reed was the only person left in the department who looked me in the eye. The others? They avoided me like I was a ghost already buried under headlines. Then there was Mara, my assistant. Never made eye contact, always typing, always listening. She didn't flinch when the guards walked in. She just kept her head down like it was just another Tuesday. But in that stillness, I knew something. This wasn't random. This wasn't about documents or security or duty. This was personal. And it wasn't the first time the president's name had haunted my life. I remember the first time I met her. Back then, she wasn't president. Just another rising star with sharp cheekbones and a heart condition no one was supposed to know about. She'd been in surgery for 6 hours. The donor heart was mine. Of course, no one knew. The records were sealed. The match had been unusual, rare. She lived. Her campaign soared. And me? I signed the non-disclosure and faded into the background. Back to my station, back to the war zones, back to saving lives with shaking hands and a stitched-up soul. I never wanted credit. I just wanted her to do good with the second chance I gave her. But instead, she used that heart to become something terrifying. And now, she was using that same power to destroy me. I lit a cigarette with shaking fingers. Something I hadn't done in years. My hand trembled as I inhaled, not from fear, but fury. She was trying to erase me. But I know things about her no one else does. Things not even her cabinet would believe. Things that could bring the walls of her empire crashing down in silence. I looked down at the letter Reed gave me. Inside was a location and a time. No explanation, no signature, just one line scratched in pen. "If you want the truth, come alone." I folded it back into my coat pocket and stared down the long white steps of the Capitol, eyes narrowing against the sun. This wasn't the end of me. This was the beginning of something she couldn't stop, not with power, not with lies, because I gave her my heart once, and this time I was going to take it back. Funny how betrayal doesn't start with a gunshot or a scream. Sometimes it starts with a whisper, or a file that quietly disappears from the system. It was 2 years before the scandal, back when I still wore white with pride, back when they still called me doctor with respect. I just returned from Kandahar, 3 surgeries in a tent, one done without anesthesia, one without light. My hands were steadier then. My soul wasn't. I joined the National Medical Division to get away from the blood. Ironically, it brought me back to hers. Valen Locke. At the time, she wasn't. President. She wasn't even political. She was General Locke, the war goddess in pressed boots and a voice that could command storms. And one day, she arrived at our base, not walking, not standing, but bleeding out in the back of a military chopper. Shrapnel had torn through her chest. We didn't have a donor. We didn't have time. But I was a match. Not for everything, but for something rare, something vital. Her heart was failing, not from the injury, from the condition no one dared to log. In official files, I gave her my blood. And then something more. A medical clearance signed off in my name, marked confidential. The transplant was experimental. The donor, anonymous. No one would ever know. I thought it was the right thing. She lived, and with that second life, she didn't just rise, she launched. The country wanted a warrior with a savior complex. And she gave them one, without ever admitting that the only reason she could stand behind that podium was because I laid on that table for her. I remember the first time she thanked me. Her voice was low, barely audible. She said, "You gave me power. I won't forget it. But people forget, especially when power rewrites the past." Colonel Ayers entered my life not long after that. Always in black, always watching, never smiled, not once. I knew he wasn't there for security. He was there to make sure the secret stayed buried. Then came Dr. Milan, the hospital director. He used to be warm, helpful, until the promotions started. Until his office became just down the hall from Ayers. That's when I noticed the first change. A file I needed, gone. My credentials, red flagged. Colleagues I'd trained, avoiding eye contact. And Mara, my assistant, she stopped greeting me, stopped asking questions, started double-checking my steps. One morning, I found an envelope on my desk. No name, no return address. Inside, an internal memo about an ethics investigation. My name was circled in red ink. I remember standing there, staring at it, feeling like the floor shifted. I walked to Milan's office, my voice calm, but something in me already breaking. He wouldn't look at me. I asked, "Are you seriously doing this? You know my record. You know who I am." He finally said, "There are concerns about undocumented procedures." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Are we really pretending this isn't about her?" He didn't answer, just closed the file in front of him and whispered, "You should be careful, Elara." After that, things got colder. Meetings happened without me. Surgeries I was scheduled to lead were reassigned. One night, I stayed late. My access badge wouldn't open the surgical archive anymore. I looked into the reflection of the glass, and for the first time, I saw it. They weren't protecting me anymore. They were circling me, like I was a threat, a virus. They turned on me like I was the disease. I tried to confront Valen once. Back then, she still took my calls. We met at the rooftop garden behind the Capitol Medical Wing. The wind was sharp that day. I asked her directly, "Why are you doing this?" She didn't blink. Just adjusted her coat and said, "You were never supposed to stay in the picture. You should have disappeared after Kandahar." And then she walked away, like I was nothing more than an outdated file. That's when I realized this wasn't about ethics. This was about control, about eliminating every trace of weakness, every piece of the past that could expose her lie. And I was the last piece. Now I look back, and I wonder how I ever thought she had a heart. Mean, technically, she does. She has mine. But what she never understood is that a heart can be given in silence and still rise in vengeance. Some betrayals don't stab you in the chest. They unfold, quietly, like ink seeping through water, slow, spreading, irreversible. The day I discovered the file, I wasn't even looking for it. I was looking for answers. Instead, I found the noose already tied, with my name spelled in bold at the top. The file was labeled Post-Op Analysis, Algeria, Asset Compromise. I remember staring at it, not breathing. As the words bled off the screen like poison, it said I'd approved the wrong medical extraction protocol, that I'd ignored direct orders, that 5 soldiers died because of me. But the real punch? That operation was greenlit by Valen herself. I was only brought in after her signature was already dry. I scrolled to the bottom, where the classification seal should have been. It was missing. Instead, someone had typed in red, authorized for presidential review only. And I knew, right then, I was never meant to see it. Reed called that night. His voice was shaking. He said, "Elara, you need to leave the city. Now. They know you found it." I didn't ask how he knew. I just asked one question. "Did you know?" There was a pause. Too long. Too quiet. Then he whispered, "I didn't have a choice. They said if I didn't help frame it, they'd go after my sister. You weren't supposed to take the fall, just fade out quietly." I could hear my heartbeat over the silence. I asked, "How long have you known about the cover-up?" Reed broke, said, "Since the transplant. I read the flagged report, donor match, your blood work, your clearance signature. I tried to destroy it before it reached Silas, but someone higher than him, they were already pulling strings. That was the first time I heard the name. Silas, Director Silas, a phantom from intelligence. No public record, no voice clips, just a reputation whispered through locked doors. He didn't ask questions. He erased them. And now, he was erasing me. I went to confront Mara the next day. She looked surprised when I showed up at her apartment, but not shocked. I said, "You were never really my assistant, were you?" She blinked slowly, stepped back from the doorway. Then she said it. So, calmly. It almost didn't sting. "I was assigned to observe. That's it. I didn't ask for this post. I asked if she ever questioned it, working for a woman who donated her heart to the very president trying to destroy her." Mara looked at me for a long time before answering. Then she whispered, "You weren't supposed to be the kind that survives. You weren't supposed to fight back." It all started to snap into place. The sudden cold shoulders, the sealed records, the mysteriously missing equipment logs, and then Dr. Lenore Vega. She was the only other person in that surgical chamber. Besides me, the only one who helped during Valen's transplant. But she was gone, disappeared. Official word? Transferred overseas, unofficial whispers? Silenced. I searched her old terminal late that night, praying it hadn't been scrubbed. And I found something. One message, encrypted, dated 3 days before she vanished. It was titled, "In Case I Disappear." There was no greeting, just her voice, trembling, rushed, barely audible through the distortion. She said, "Donor was never supposed to be identified." But I couldn't let it stay buried. "Elara, it's you. You gave her your heart, literally. And now they're rewriting every detail to erase that fact." She paused, then added something I'll never forget. She needed your heart to live, but now she needs your absence to stay in power. I sat there in the dark, staring at the flickering screen. The president, the woman I once saved, wasn't just hiding the truth. She was gutting history, twisting it, making herself the untouchable savior, while burying the only proof that she was ever vulnerable. Me. I thought about confronting her again. But something inside me broke, not in a loud, screaming kind of way. In silence. A kind of silence that feels like steel tightening around bone. I whispered to myself, "She needed my heart. Now she wants me erased so no one ever knows she's not invincible." That night, I packed up everything. My credentials. My records. The last copy of Vega's message. I walked away from my apartment, from the job, from the name I once built with everything I had, and I disappeared. Not to run, but to prepare, because this time, she wouldn't see me coming. Revenge isn't rage. Rage burns too fast. This was something colder, sharper, like glass under skin. You don't notice it at first, but when you do, it's already too late. I went dark the night I listened to Dr. Vega's recording. No more phone, no more apartment, no more Elara Wynn. I vanished, just like they wanted, but not the way they expected. The first step? Reconnect with an old ghost. Major Ellis. I saved his sister in Kabul. Shrapnel had nicked her femoral artery. I held her life in my hands for 11 minutes. He never forgot that. When I showed up outside his abandoned training ground in Nevada, he didn't ask questions. He just looked me up and down and muttered, "Damn, I figured they'd buried you." By now, I told him. They tried, but I wasn't done breathing. He gave a tired smile. "Then let's make them wish you weren't." Ellis was all edges, scars layered over more scars, but his mind was still surgical. He helped me build a physical blind spot. No paper trail, no digital pings, just boots, sweat, and strategy. Valen's team will be scanning for facial recognition, he warned. We have to become the glitch in the system, the one they can't trace, can't predict. I asked, "Think we can outmatch Silas?" He didn't hesitate. "We don't have to outmatch him. We just need to let him think he's already won." Step 2 was finding Yuri, a name whispered between whistleblowers and people who vanished, after hacking federal servers. Yuri didn't meet people, but he met me. I left a box of heart valve models on the Brooklyn Bridge, the kind used for training surgeries, carved with encrypted GPS data inside. It worked. 3 nights later, I found him in the back room of a sushi restaurant. He had 2 laptops open, 5 cell phones plugged in, and eyes that didn't blink nearly enough. He studied me like I was a glitch in his code. Then he said, "You're the ghost who gave the president her heart." I froze. He smirked. "Yeah, I know everything. That's kind of my thing." I told him I needed every trace of my identity erased, but also weaponized. He leaned back, chewing on a matchstick. "You want to be dead, but still dangerous." "Exactly," I said. He nodded slowly. "Then we start with your obituary." Yuri leaked the news 1 week later. Dr. Elara Wynn, former war surgeon, killed in plane explosion overseas. No body, just ashes, just enough. Obituaries flooded forums, legacy pages, even medical journals. The world moved on, but in the dark, I was sharpening blades. Step 3 meant going back to Vega's encrypted drive. Ellis helped me get to the underground facility where it was last logged. He'd marked it on an old topographic map, a remote archive center buried beneath a decommissioned hospital in Maryland, the kind of place bureaucrats forgot, but intelligence never did. Inside the drive, medical scans, pre-op recordings, and one smoking gun, a biometric scan of Valen's old heart, matched to mine. The file was tagged, Wraith, classified. Under black tier protocols, consent form attached, my name, my signature, my blood match, the document that was never supposed to exist. It wasn't enough to have proof. I needed a voice. That's when I found Annika. She was once the face of the nation, a news anchor who tore down corruption with a single eyebrow raise, until she exposed a senator's offshore deal and was blacklisted overnight. She now ran a blog from a rusty trailer in Montana. When I knocked on her door, she blinked like she'd seen a ghost. I said, "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm here to give you the story that'll make them beg for mercy." Annika stared at the files I handed her, scans, records, the donor registry, and whispered, "If this is real, it'll shake the foundation." I said, "It is the foundation." Meanwhile, Silas was sniffing. Yuri traced 3 digital pings from his team. They were trying to find me, but each trail led to a dead end, a loop, a shadow. Ellis looked at me one night while we were planning and said, "This isn't revenge anymore, is it? It's justice." I didn't answer right away. Then I whispered, "It's both." I baited Silas next. Yuri created a ghost server loaded with redacted fragments of the Wraith file. I leaked it to a dummy journalist known for being sloppy, Silas bit. 2 days later, the president's motorcade was rerouted. She was moved from the Capitol to an underground high-security facility in Vermont. Ellis grinned when he heard. "They're running scared," I told him. "Good, let them." The final piece was timing. We chose the anniversary of Valen's presidency, a live broadcast, a celebration of her legacy, and on that day, we struck. At 9:03 a.m., Annika dropped the video. Footage of Valen in surgery, unconscious, vulnerable, overlaid with my medical scans, then the consent form, then the donor match, her face on every screen. Next to mine, it went viral in under 10 minutes. Yuri amplified it, hijacked hashtags, flooded trending topics. Ellis jammed local feeds in government buildings. The public gasped. Some defended her. Others demanded answers. Most just stared, stunned. Realizing the woman they worshipped was stitched together from silence and lies. Valen didn't speak that day. The broadcast was canceled. Silas went silent. And me? I sat alone in a safe house 3 states away, watching the world tilt just slightly. They tried to erase me, but I left scars they couldn't hide. That night, I received a message. No sender, just one line, "You made your point. What do you want now?" I stared at the screen, then typed back, "The truth. In your own voice, broadcast it, or the next leak won't be so kind." This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of her unraveling and my rebirth, because you can bury a person, but not the heartbeat you stole to become powerful. Truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through the cracks until the walls fall down. The day it happened, there were no explosions, no arrests, no blood, just silence. And then, everything. The media had been buzzing for days. Conspiracy theories, medical leaks, unanswered questions. Then, without warning, every major news channel, every live stream, every public square screen froze and played a single video. A woman sat in shadow, her voice calm, steady. She said, "Years ago, I gave someone the chance to live. I gave her my heart. Not just biologically, but blindly, believing she would use it for good." Then the footage began. The surgical table, the donor forms, the consent record marked Wraith, the biometric match, my name, and, at the very end, Valen Locke's signature, staring the world in the face like a broken promise. I didn't appear in the video, but I didn't have to. Annika read my letter, Live, standing under the Capitol dome, where they couldn't mute her without proving every word true. She held my words in her hands like a scalpel and spoke them without shaking. "You buried me once, but remember, your heart beats because of mine. You erased your past, but your future still depends on the woman you tried to destroy." She paused. Let the silence speak. Then she added, "I didn't die. I just stopped waiting for justice and built it myself." Valen watched from a secure location. I'm told she didn't move the entire broadcast, just sat, frozen. Reed turned that day. Publicly, said he'd lied, said he was told to protect national image, said he wasn't proud of what he'd done, but he was done hiding. Ellis submitted a sealed testimony to the Oversight Committee. Proof of movement, orders, digital trails, backdoor logs to the Wraith file, all traced back to Silas, even Mara. She didn't speak on record. But she didn't defend Valen either. They couldn't spin it. Not this time. Not with medical documents, testimonies, and half the country watching history unravel in real time. Valen made a brief appearance 3 days later. She looked thinner, smaller. Her voice trembled as she said she was resigning for personal and health reasons. No admission, no apology. But that's the thing about power. Once you lose its illusion, no one hears you anymore. I didn't celebrate. I didn't dance, didn't drink, didn't gloat. I just sat on a bench in some nameless town, watching kids run through sprinklers and thought, this is what I gave her a heart for. Not for power, not for fear, but for peace, and maybe now, it could finally begin. Justice wasn't loud. It wasn't violent, but it was final, because you can silence a voice, but not a heartbeat that remembers. The sea doesn't ask questions. It just listens. And today, that's all I need. I sit on a worn bench near the shoreline. Not famous, not hunted, not celebrated, just alive. People think I vanished after the leak. Maybe I did. Maybe that's the only way to truly win, to let the storm pass and not stand, where lightning might strike again. My name? Still redacted in most files, still whispered in rooms where truth scares people more than lies ever did. But I left my mark. Some revenge doesn't scream. It breathes. In the silence of truth, a girl jogs past me, her ponytail swaying, shirt damp with sweat. I glance at the words on her chest. Truth heals. And I smile. Just a little. It's enough. I turn off the radio. The news fades behind me. No more updates, no more noise. I stand, stretch, feel the weight of everything I lost, and everything I reclaimed. The president wanted revenge on me, but I had already given her my heart. The rest? She took, and I took back.